Hello. So today I will be doing, per usual, a little wrap up and then what I've read recently, and also I have quite a stack of books to show for a book haul. I have a special edition set, and then I have some books I picked up at Barnes & Noble. So yes, that is what this video will be like today. Again, I just washed my hair, so if it looks kind of insane, I always just let it air dry. So, and this is the only day that I've really been able to film so far. I think I might be a little sick or just allergies, so before it gets worse, it was now or never. So anyway, to start off, I'm going to talk about the book that I have finished most recently. So if you've seen my previous video, you'll know that I have been reading Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. So when I last updated you, I think I was like not even a quarter of the way through. I think I was had just started. And I will say, this book took me a while to finish. And I will get into that as I get into the review. So I'll start off by saying that I ended up giving this book 3 stars. Three, which is what I gave the first book, Fourth Wing. So there will be no spoilers for either book in this. If you want me to do like a full-on discussion, I can, but I don't want to give any spoilers in case you haven't read it. So coming off of Fourth Wing, I thought that book was very addictive, very entertaining, but not the best fantasy book in the world. But I was curious where she would take it in the second book, and now I know. So Iron Flame shares many of the same qualities, I would say, as Fourth Wing does. It's very addictive. It's a page turner. And the characters are pretty engaging as well. It's a book that you'll just like, as you sit down to read, you'll just find yourself flipping the page because the author really keeps the pace moving. I will say, though, that was one of the drawbacks I found in the first book, was that everything just happened really quickly. And so when we got into the second book, I really enjoyed the first quarter of it, almost the first half, because it felt like the characters had more breathing room in the first quarter than they did in the first book. And there was some separation between our main character Violet and her love interest Xaden. There was some actual like distance and tension between them, which I appreciated, because I felt like sometimes in the first book it kind of lacked that. And there was like friendship tension as well. You were really kind of just with Violet in her head, which I appreciated for a little bit. Again, you're back at the school setting. Basgiath, I think is how you pronounce it. And so, yeah, I was really liking it. And then you do reach a part in the book where something shifts. Like, I would say overall, the reason I gave this 3 stars is because, well, I found the plot really engaging and surprising. Like, I felt like this book, I didn't know where this book was going. Because I feel like if you've read second books in series before, sorry, I'm kind of segueing all over the place, but if you've read sequels before, you kind of know sort of the structure of a sequel. Even like with different series, you know, like sequels have certain things they need to accomplish. You know, they're working off of what the first book gave them, they're expanding the world a little bit. And basically just like the structure of a story, I felt like this, I never knew what was going to happen next because so much story was crammed in this book. Like when I say this book felt like 3 stories in one, I'm not joking. So you have like, it's almost like broken into parts. So like you start with like one story structure and then like we have a shift like halfway in and then it just keeps going. My main complaint about this book is that there was just too much of it. We're going at like a breakneck pace in this plot. So much happens in this book. I would say the story that's covered in this book could probably have been expanded into at least 2 books, if not more. So much happens that I feel like the character arcs, once the pace kept getting, you know, faster and faster, the character arcs kind of felt like they were being rushed a little bit. Basically, it was like all plot, no, like we had no break. You know, I'm used to reading a lot of adult fantasy that's very thoughtfully crafted, maybe slower paced, I guess is the way you could phrase it, but just like lingers on character. And I felt like this book did not really do that. It felt like all plot, and there'd be like a paragraph for a character moment that I thought could have been more artfully delivered to us, artfully shown. Again, I liked the first part of this book. The very beginning, I felt like had a good character pace, if that makes sense. But then as we continued on, we were on a roller coaster and we weren't stopping anytime soon. So like by the time I finished this book, it's about, let me see if I can check. I think it's about 600 pages, 618 pages. And I think on Goodreads it says it's even longer, so I don't know. This is a long book, and it covers so much ground that I feel like should have been done more thoughtfully. I feel like the author, when she's writing, she's just like, well, I'll make it, the way she'll make it engaging is like one thing happening after another, after another, after another. And I don't think that's always the solution you want, especially for a more like mature fantasy. I can get that it's very enjoyable that way, because especially if you have like an attention span that like loves fast plots, I feel like you'll like this book because it's always churning on, you know. So, but if you're looking for like a well-crafted character exploration fantasy, I don't know if this would be your jam. Another sort of minus, as we got into more into this book, I had forgotten this from the first book because it had been a while since I'd read it, but you know, we get more like steamy scenes with Violet and what is his name? Xaden. And as soon as we got those again, I was like, I forgot that they were written like this. Again, I'm used to like romance in adult fantasy is usually a side plot, and it's usually done with more of a capital R romance, you know? I'm not sure if this makes sense, but I'm a fan of the 2005 Pride and Prejudice movie, as I'm sure a lot of you are. And in that movie, yes, it's a romance, but there's not a lot of, you know, like physical, there's like glances and like the brush of a hand, and that's very much the romance that I kind of ascribe to. And this was just a lot for me. So I had forgotten how descriptive the author was with their scenes. So if you like that, you'll like this series, because she really holds nothing back, you know. She explains things that personally I didn't want to hear explained. Like, there's some things I just don't need to know. You know, you can keep that to yourself. I don't need it all described in excruciating detail. But that's just me. That's just a personal preference. And I had forgotten that they were written like that. So when I read the first one, I was like, whoa, whoa. Like, damn, I was not expecting that. Okay. And really, it's just not my type of romance. Really, that's one of my critiques, I think, of Violet and Xaden's relationship, is that I feel like the yearning is nice, but in a lot of ways it lacks capital R romance. When I read about a relationship, I'm really invested in the emotional aspect of it, and the physical stuff comes after. And like, it's just, I like the physical stuff when it's a manifestation of the emotional stuff, if that makes sense. And there were some scenes in here that were just, to me, I was like, okay, you don't have to go on and on. But yeah, I also thought, again, I think I've mentioned this in an earlier video, I think the dialogue for some of those scenes in particular are kind of cringy. There were some lines in this that I was like, like, really? Like, that's what you're gonna hit him with? Like, I won't give you any examples because I don't physically think I could get myself to say any of them, but like, I feel like they could have been better written. I'm no expert, but I don't think they were great lines. And speaking of great lines, another thing that kind of irked me in this book was actually something that was shown in the first book too. So the author will often have Violet like repeat like a phrase. Like, I think the phrase is like, "I will not die today," you know? And like, I feel like I've seen that now on like merch and like promo, for Fourth Wing. Like, it's kind of like been adopted as like one of the phrases for Fourth Wing. And I just, like, when I read that, I'm like, that is not a unique creative line. Like, do you know how many people have said, "I will not die today" as their like mantra? Like, it's just so uncreative to me. I'm like, did you put 1 second of thought into that? Because like, I've heard that 1,000 times. Like, it's not a special saying. I don't know, that just was like one of the things that irked me. Also in this book we have like, let me show you an example. I feel like I should have tabbed some of these so I could show you, but at the beginning of the chapters there's like an excerpt from like a journal or something. They're excerpts from different textbooks and journals and letters from different characters throughout the story. And sometimes, to me, like, they just didn't serve any purpose. Sometimes, like, they added a bit of context to the story, but other times it just kind of felt like filler. I'm trying to think of an example. There was one that was like just talking about the dangers of a dragon, and I'm like, yes, that's been established, like, we get the dragons are dangerous. I didn't need that repeated in a short excerpt from a made-up text, you know. Which just kind of goes back to, I think the world building in this is expanded in the sequel, which I appreciated. But the character arcs, both the world building and the character arcs, I felt like both suffered this issue of, again, being too rushed. You're taken away to a couple different locations in here, but they didn't feel very well developed. And then like enemies become allies so quickly, and friends are forgiven really quickly, and just there's a lot of different character arcs that do happen in this book, but they're all resolved, or you know, they change so quickly that like it didn't feel like a lot of thought or development was put into it. So it makes you, the reader, not really like care or believe. You're like, oh, they're not enemies anymore, okay. Again, I think just the plot and the story was pushed so rapidly in this book that you didn't have a lot of space for much else, is my main critique. I do think, again, I gave this 3 stars. I think the writing was like a little better in this book than the first book. I think. At least during the first half. Again, I was so emotionally worn out by the time I finished this book. I was just so tired. I was like, because again, it was just the pacing and the plot was unrelenting. Like, yes, it was still addictive, but also I was so done at certain points, you know. And lastly, before I move on, I'll briefly talk about the ending, because it does end on a cliffhanger, just like the first one did. I won't, again, no spoilers or anything, but I kind of saw it coming near the end. And also, I feel like it would have had more impact if I knew the ramifications of this cliffhanger. If you've read it, you'll know what I'm talking about, but like, again, it's just part of the world not fully being explained. There's enemies in this, you know, that were introduced in book 1 that play a bigger role in this second book, but we as the reader don't really know a lot about them. And so like their impact is kind of like, well, I don't know what their plan is, you know, I don't know what this means, but they're bad guys. Yeah, I get it. I just thought, again, like a lot of the characters, they could have been more developed, which took away from like some of the oomph of the cliffhanger for me. But I mean, I'm just personally glad that the 3rd book's not coming out in a while, because I need a break. I'm tired. As entertaining as it was, again, I gave it 3 stars because it's definitely a page turner. Like, if you're looking to get out of a reading slump or just like get through something, I feel like this is a good one to pick up. But again, don't go in expecting like Ursula K. Le Guin or like Robin Hobb, or you know, any of them. Don't go expecting like an epic fantasy. This is just like a slightly fun, slightly cringy time, in my opinion. But again, if you're not in it for like epic fantasy, you just want like something you can read through really fast and get like kind of immersed in, it's not a bad one to pick up. So 3 stars. Okay, next I will go into the book haul. Sorry if I rambled on about that book a bit long. It took up a lot of my time, so I felt like I had to give it its due. So the next book I'll go into is the special edition set that I got in the mail actually today, so kind of glad I decided to film today, or else I would have had to include it in the next one. So, and these are, I'm very excited for these. I didn't know they were coming this early, but they are the Illumicrate editions of the Falconer trilogy by Elizabeth May. This is what they look like. If you've been watching any of my other videos, you'll know that I actually reread this series earlier this year, like not that long ago. It was like a couple months ago. So this is, originally this was a young adult fantasy trilogy. and I read it years ago, back when they came out. But recently, after I finished rereading them, of course, the author, Elizabeth May, announced that she was coming out with a re-release of the series, but in adult or new adult, I'm not sure which one, because originally she had written them kind of darker and for like a more mature audience, but I think her publisher made her age it down for young adult. But like, this is the story how she had always imagined it and written it, so it's going to have darker themes, probably more like sexual content, and so she announced that they were releasing these for Kindle or like ebook, and then I think physical copies will come later, but Illumicrate said that they were going to release early those editions, but like in the special edition form. Sorry, I did not phrase that the best way. So as soon as I heard that Illumicrate was releasing these editions, I of course bought them, because I really liked this series. And I'm very, very, very excited to see it in the form that the author originally intended. I do feel kind of silly because I did just reread this series in the young adult form, but I mean, now I want to know what the like full adult story is, you know, like now I'm just curious. So again, I don't think these are out, aside from these editions, I don't think they're out in physical form yet, but I think they are in ebook form. Double check me on that because I'm not sure. If they're not out yet, they will be out soon, so very, very, very exciting. So this is the trilogy, and then I'll show you really briefly what each one looks like. Also, shout out if you saw like those videos where I was rereading this series, because you'll know what a shock this would come to me as, because I literally just reread the series. So this is the first book. This is The Falconer by Elizabeth May. I just realized I didn't talk about it. It's like a Regency era Scottish fae fantasy. If you like the like mentor trainee trope, you'll probably like this. So these are the Illumicrate editions again. Here are the sprayed pages. This light is a little bright. Hopefully you can see that. Here is the back. I'm not sure if there's any art. Oh, there is art. Oh, that's so exciting. So here is the art on the inside. Hopefully you can see that. There's different art on this side. You know what, I'll just take the dust jacket off. This is the cover, the embossed gold on the naked book. It's a wolf, very pretty, and it's the same on the back. I really love the spine on this edition too. It's very pretty. So again, here's the art for the back. I don't think I showed that yet. Basically, if you want like a short premise, it's like a steampunk Scottish fae fantasy. We follow what is her name? Alina? Eliana. We follow Eliana as she is trying to solve the mystery of her mother's murder. In the night, she trains with a fairy named Kieran, who is training her to fight other fae, so that she can eventually get revenge on the fairy who killed her mother. So that's like the bare bones plot of this series. And again, I've already read it. I did really enjoy it both times, both the first time I read it and the recent reread I just did. But I do have a feeling I will like these editions even more, so I'm excited. I love a steampunk fantasy. It's a very underrated subgenre. Okay, so that is the first book. Oh, and they are also signed by the author, which is very exciting. The second book is called The Fallen Kingdom. And it's this like royal blue shade. Very pretty. This is the back. Here are the blue sprayed pages. Okay, so this book has a horse on it. They're really getting all of my favorite animals so far. You got wolves, horses. Once again, here is the art. I will say, this art is beautiful, don't get me wrong, but not exactly how I pictured Kieran. It's stunning art though, like really beautiful. And I'm wondering now if maybe the characters are older in this series or not. I think originally in the originally published young adult editions, I think Eliana is 17. She might be 18 or 19. I know she's like 17 to 19, I think. So I'm just curious if she's still that age in these editions or if the author aged her up. Not sure. I guess I'll find out. So far, this one, of course, has to be my favorite. If you don't know, I am a horse girl at heart, so. And lastly is this purple book, The Vanishing Throne. This is the third book. So it has purple sprayed pages. It's basically the same cover, just this pretty purple color. These editions are really pretty. I do think I prefer the original covers though. I think the art on the original covers is really pretty and sort of classic looking. This is just my personal preference, but I don't really love very stark, colorful colors. I know that's sort of a trend in some fantasy now, like for publishers to have the covers be very like intense teals or like intense purples, and I'm like, whoa, I'm a neutrals person. Give me muted greens and, you know, neutral colors and we'll be happy. But yeah, so this isn't my favorite like marketing color trend for covers, but I say la vie. They're still really pretty. So I will show you what this one looks like. So this one has a really pretty bird on it. Very stunning. Again, just really fond of this spine artwork. I think it's really pretty. Very pretty. And then I'll show you the art for this one too. Really pretty. I particularly like this artist's use of like setting. I think they do settings really well. Here is the back. Okay. Really quickly, I just saw that one of the blurbs says that this is a wicked cocktail of Jane Austen's high society and the Grimm's fairy tales, and I think that's very apropos for this series. So yeah, that is the Illumicrate special editions. Lastly, I will just show you my regular book haul from Barnes & Noble. Again, I'm trying to be better about not buying too many books. I've done fairly well, but I'm not perfect, you know. Okay, so the first book I only got 3. So that's not too bad. Like, come on, it could definitely be worse, so, you know. The first book I got is Buried Deep from Naomi Novik. Buried Deep and Other Stories. First off, I think this cover is really pretty. This is definitely a cover that I enjoy. I know a lot of people have opinions about dust jackets and whether they like them or if they like just a naked hardcover like this with the art on the book itself. I kind of like both. I don't really have a preference. But if you do, I'm curious to know. Basically, this is just a collection of short stories or novellas that Naomi Novik has written. I believe some of them are new, like original, and others take place in some of the worlds she's already written about. For example, she has a series about dragons called the Temeraire series that I have not read yet, but I think 1 or 2 of these stories are set in that world. I recently read, as you know, the Scholomance series from her, and I think there's a story set in that world here. I could be wrong. If you've watched my videos, you know that I was not the biggest fan of the ending of that series, so maybe this can, bring back some of the good times. So yeah, this is just a regular hardcover. It says a thrilling anthology of 13 short stories that span the worlds created by the New York Times best-selling author of the Scholomance trilogy, including a sneak peek at the land where her next major project will be set. So that's very exciting. It says here that her upcoming project is called Folly, which I really like that title, so very excited to see what she does next. So yes, this is the first book that I got. I think it might have some art in here. Maybe just towards the back. It's like some drawings and stuff. So that's cool. Yeah, so this is one book that I bought. It was $30, which is a bit extreme. Thank you, Barnes & Noble. But the other book I got is A Song of Ash and Moonlight. This is a sequel to, what was it called? A Crown of Glass and Ivy, I think, by Claire Legrand. This is the author of, she's written a few things. Furyborn, which I have not read. I actually have not read any books from this author, but this series sounded so good. I'd heard a lot of positive reviews of it, so I do own the first book. And, I saw this, and in a moment of weakness, I picked it up. I think it's because I have the hardcover of the first book, and I was kind of scared that I wouldn't get a matching hardcover of the second one. Because if I recall correctly, I think the first book ran, the hardcover wasn't really available in stores for that long, so I know it's usually a year, but for some reason it felt shorter, so I saw this and I was like, I must get. So yeah, I actually don't know much about this book at all, and I don't really want to, so I'm just going to go into it blind. So yeah, excited to get to the first book so I can, slowly get to this one. Said every book collector ever, but And then the last book I actually had forgotten, so it's not, I didn't get it at Barnes & Noble. It was another book that I got in the mail from Illumicrate. It was the book of the month, so no, I take it back. It's not Illumicrate. It's from Waterstones, and it's a very exciting book. It's one I've been waiting for a long time, and it's perfect for Sapphic September. And it is A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft. I did a video talking about some of my favorite Alison Saft books, because she's one of my auto-buy authors. And I think I mentioned that I was very excited for this upcoming release, and it's finally here. I'm very excited. This is the UK cover, which is really, really pretty. I love it. I don't think it's as pretty as the US cover, but it does have these sprayed edges, so this is what got me. Waterstones can usually get me with sprayed edges if I'm interested in the book. If I had any advice to share on book buying, it would be don't get too sucked in by pretty sprayed pages, because it's easy to see them and think, ooh, this sounds good, but really do your research on the book to see if it's something that really interests you. Publishers know that, like, we're drawn to pretty books with pretty pages, but if you, like, read a bit of the story and the writing doesn't, you know, like, jive with you, I would say don't waste money on it, because it'll just sit on your shelf taking up space, and then eventually you will get rid of it and it will all be for naught. And I am saying this from experience. So just a word of caution, I guess. But this book sounded really good and also has pretty sprayed pages, so it's the best of both worlds. This is basically about, so again, it's a sapphic romance, but it's about what is she? She's a folklorist? Yeah, a folklorist with a quick temper, and she has to team up with her academic rival. And I think one of their mentors goes missing, and they have to work together to, like, figure out what happened. I've heard good things so far, and I'm very excited to get to this. I want to get to this month, hopefully. That's my plan. So, you know, the mood reader in me can always change plans, but hopefully I will get to this. So, and also just covers with this color. I love covers that are green like this, so that is just another thing that got me. So, but yeah, that is it for this video. I'm going on like 45 minutes, which is pretty long for me, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this was, you know, relaxing. And let me know if you've read any of these books or you plan to. I'd love to hear. So thank you, and I hope you have a good day or night wherever you are. Thanks.